America's top diplomat in Israel is calling for a humanitarian pause in the fighting to help civilians and possibly get hostages out of Gaza. The Israelis appearing to reject this, calling forces to advance into Gaza City. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken also confirms 35 Americans died in Hamas's October 7th attack. Inez de la Catera has our coverage from Jerusalem.
As the war between Israel and Hamas enters its fourth week, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken again in the region, trying to balance U.S. support for Israel with efforts to minimize civilian casualties in Gaza. The secretary urging Israeli leaders to consider a humanitarian pause in the conflict.
We are absolutely focused on getting hostages back. A humanitarian pause could help that effort.
But after his meeting with Blinken, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there will be no temporary ceasefire until Hamas releases the over 200 hostages captured on October 7th. The families and friends of those hostages staging almost daily demonstrations to secure their freedom, today releasing hundreds of balloons outside the government buildings in Tel Aviv, where Secretary Blinken held his meetings.
We're hopeless, but we're full of hope that something will happen and she'll come back.
Israel's relentless bombardment of Gaza continues. Today, the health ministry in Hamas-run Gaza claims Israel targeted a convoy of ambulances leaving the largest hospital in Gaza City. More than 9,200 civilians have been killed in Gaza, according to the Hamas-run Gaza health ministry. And on the ground, Israeli forces advancing further into the enclave. Its troops fighting Hamas in what the IDF describes as face-to-face combat inside Gaza City. 25 Israeli soldiers killed in action since the ground invasion began a week ago. In Lebanon, to Israel's north, the leader of Hezbollah making his first public speech since the war started, praising Hamas and saying a wider Middle East conflict is, quote, a realistic possibility. Since the Rafah border crossing opened on Wednesday, over 1,000 foreign passport holders and over 100 injured Palestinians have crossed over into Egypt. Only those whose names appear on a list have been allowed to leave. Inez de la Catera, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Overwhelmed hospitals in Gaza say they're nearing collapse, with medicine and fuel running low under the Israeli siege. About 70% of Gaza's population, about 1.5 million people, have fled from their homes.